I'm Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 98 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. Today we're talking about and continuing our work on the soaP framework. The framework that we started using in 2020 to help us get through the pandemic, dealing with changes and challenges and making that automatic so we were always doing the thing that was best for us. So today we're on the P of the soaP framework, and that stands for progress. So how do we know we're making progress toward the goal, toward the thing that we say we want, or the, overcoming a challenge or a setback? Well, we have a process for that, of course, but first we have to understand, what does progress mean to us? Yesterday I picked among my three alternatives, I did the urine analysis on them, and I came up with journaling out of Lynn Grabhorn's book. There's relevant exercises in there that help us get over things that are still with us. We think we've gotten over them, but it might be a thought, a belief, a feeling, and this is a spiritual one that's definitely dampened my spirit and my soul over many years, and I want to release and let it go. So how am I going to do that? I could have gone out and sought professional help. I could have shared it with someone just to work through it and let it go, which is a lot like getting professional help, right? Probably I don't want to talk to necessarily someone close to me. And finally, journaling it out and using Lynn Grabhorn's, from her book, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting, exercise workbook that goes along with her book. She wrote several books before she passed away. And working through that spiritual belief and thought that has been with me for a long, long time. So how do we know we're making progress, especially on something really subjective like that? Well, we want to understand what progress means to us. We have to have a way of monitoring the changes that we're making along the way. Not just do we achieve the final goal, but are we making steps toward what it is that we want? So we have to find a way to monitor that. We have to analyze the impact of the changes that we're making. And then if we need to make adjustments, we need to make adjustments. So what are some of the ways we can do that? We can use KPIs, which are key performance indicators. When we set a measurable goal, since it's measurable, we can measure our progress, and that's probably the fastest, easiest way to tell if we're making progress or not. For some things, that's really, really simple. If I have a business goal or an income goal or a profit goal, I can measure where am I at on some regular frequency. We want to track our progress regularly, so having a SMART goal or a measurable goal is easier than having a more subjective goal. We want to celebrate our wins, seek feedback from relevant sources, learn from our mistakes and adjust accordingly, and then keep moving forward. Excuse me. So our action item today is to think about, what are you going to measure with respect to this particular goal that we're working on, or this challenge that we're facing, in order to fill that gap. What I decided to do, since mine is pretty subjective, is I'm taking my plan and my strategic steps for achieving this goal. I'm listing them out, and I just did a couple to get started. And then the date by which I have to have them done. And then I can monitor my progress by checking in, say, by the due date of each item, and then an overall feeling of how am I doing? How did I do this month? Did I get the result that I wanted in this month? And if I didn't, what are the steps that are outside of this month that I'm going to continue to hold myself accountable to? And then, so I said, our action item today, what are you going to measure, and what frequency are you going to measure it at? And then how and where are you going to keep track of feedback, lessons learned, and celebrations, so that you can learn from this whole experience of monitoring and tracking your progress to make sure you're moving from where you are to where you want to be, to make sure you're filling that gap. Will all of our steps fill that gap? No. I guarantee I will have some steps on my plan that don't work out exactly how I want them to. I might find an exercise in Lynn's workbook that I get stuck on and that doesn't work for me, and so I might miss my date or my deadline. Well, what am I going to learn from that? That sometimes our estimation of how long things are going to take in the beginning of a project or before we start a project are not 100% accurate and correct. So, any questions about this, hit me up. If you need help figuring out, and again, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and even relationships, these areas of our life and our life framework are more challenging to find ways to measure, right? You're not going to say for relationships, well, how many friends do I have? That's going to be how I track my progress towards something. And maybe that's not a great example, but I think you understand what I mean. When we're looking at things that are subjective and we set the meaning to it, it's a bit more challenging to measure. So if you need help with that, ask. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. Have a great day.